You that the views expressed in today's show do not reflect the views of KZLX, KNWT, or Northwest Missouri State University. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show.
Northwest Volleyball had a really good weekend this past weekend.
Yeah, very impressive weekend. To go out and beat ranked teams like that right out of the gate, usually you kind of find out an identity for a team when they get that kind of test early. And I think you saw that this volleyball team, they might be a little bit younger than they're used to. 4 seniors this year, but they have a lot of junior class experience. I just did a pack over them for Bearcat Update, and I was talking to Coach Worth about, what's this team looking to do this year, because you lost somebody in Maddie Bruder, and you're bringing in fresh faces, but you also still have a lot of juniors with experience. So what are you looking to do? And, she said, we're going to rely heavily on these seniors, but we're also going to rely very heavily on this junior class, a large, heavily experienced junior class. And, you saw evidence of it this past weekend where, they go 4-0, and they only gave up 3 sets the whole weekend. So, that's a very impressive opening start for this Northwest volleyball team.
Against some serious opponents, too. Defeating some ranked teams. Obviously, you look at defeating number 18 ranked Drury in 5 sets. And I think what Nolan was talking about in the fact that I don't know how much we were truly expecting from this team, because you're losing one of the greatest players this school has ever seen in Maddie Bruder. But you look at the junior class, and then you say, man, if we're seeing this already in weekend 1, look what we're going to see once the end of the year rolls around, and even into next year. They're only juniors, and they're putting up incredible numbers. You look at what Morgan Lewis produced, a career-high 16 kills. You look at Hallie Sidney, recorded her second double-double of the season with kills and digs, which is the double-double for volleyball. It's just going to be so much fun, I think, to watch this team all season long. And quite honestly, we weren't expecting it because, like I was saying, losing Maddie Bruder, we thought that's a big loss. That's a tough spot to fill. But Coach Worth, you got to give her credit. She filled it.
And you get those tough wins in the first set against these ranked teams, as we've said. The second set's usually where you start to struggle. You kind of come down to earth a little bit. Not in Northwest. Their second set is usually their second win. They're 4-0 in those sets, and they've progressively gotten better throughout the series in these games. In the second set, they're outscoring 102-85. That's a 17-point swing in their favor. That's something you really want to capitalize on, especially set number 2 in what could be a 3-game set, a 4-game, 5-game even, is one of these sets went to a 5-game series. Having that second win in that second set is a huge momentum builder.
And this Northwest team right now, you look at them, they've started their next tournament this weekend. It's the Drury tournament. So you played Drury, who is ranked. You played them last week, and you're going to get them again tomorrow. Right now they're taking on Northern State, another tough opponent here as they go start that tournament. That game started at 1 p.m. Northern State got the first set 25-19. Northwest, they have the second set 25-11. So they've really started playing well here today so far. But in that first tournament, you have a 3-set win, and you have to do it in 4 against Quincy. You come back with a 3-set win against William Jewell, and then you win it in 5 sets against Drury. But the big thing for Northwest, we talked about it, they are nationally ranked, and as good as they were last year, they never got to that point last year. They got close, they got votes. This year, after a 4-0 start, beating some ranked opponents, they slide into the rankings, and now you look at the MIAA, you know UCM's good, you know Nebraska Kearney's good, you know Washburn is good. Now you've got to throw Northwest into those top 4 teams.
Well, and this conference is loaded for volleyball. You would think at Northwest we're so used to it just being football, but if you look around, volleyball is a very, very top-heavy as far as the MIAA. Every single year you see these 4 or 5 teams out of the MIAA that emerge into this top 25 poll, and it's staying consistent this year. And again, when I caught up with Coach Worth, she talked about how their biggest challenge is playing all these conference games. You play these couple of invitationals here at the beginning of the year, but after that it's all conference. And when you have these tough teams in your conference alone, not even going outside nationally to whoever else you could play, you really get a test in your home conference, and I think that's where you're going to see this volleyball team really trying to mold together, rely on that leadership from the upperclassmen, because they know that the one hump they just can't seem to get over is this conference tournament.
Well, and speaking of conference, Washburn, 4th in the country. Nebraska-Kearney, 8th in the country. Central Missouri, 12th. You've got Northwest now, that 18 mark, but Central Oklahoma, they've also got votes there. But you got more tough opponents in this tournament. Northern State, who they're now 1-1 with in today's game, they're number 7 in the country. So if Northwest continues the way they started the season, they're able to beat Northern State here today, go back and beat Drury a second time, they're well on their way to not only worrying about the MIAA tournament, but now you've put together a resume at the start of the season where we can start already talking about, can this team find their way in the NCAA tournament?
And this Northern team, too, you mentioned that they're a top 10 team. They are 4-0. They won the Colorado School of Mines tournament last week whenever Northwest was playing in that Washburn Invitational. They have Laura Snyder, who's got 55 kills on the season. She's got a 44% kill rate, which is incredibly high compared to where Northwest, I believe Hallie Sidney's is at just over 30%. So having that extra talent on there, you have Ashley Roselle, who's got 170 assists in 4 whole games this season. She's got 13 a game. She already has 16 after the second set. She's playing a huge part in that Northern State offensive attack, and this is a good game to watch. If Northwest can sneak out a win here, it's going to be one of those resume builder games where you're saying, hey, starting off the season early, we're 5-0, we're playing the best of the best, and we're coming out away with wins here.
And I think one thing that you look at this Northwest team is their versatility. I mean, you look at Maddie Aarons, who was named the MIAA Specialist of the Week. She averaged 11 assists per set and 2 digs per set at that Washburn Invitational. And then you look at outside hitter and Hallie Sidney, who earned co-MIAA Hitter of the Week with 4 kills per set and hit .303 and was named the Washburn Invitational All-Tournament Team. So you look at the balance of this Northwest team to say, we kind of have some players who can kind of do it all, set it up for some of these killers like Hallie Sidney. This is going to be, I think, a tough team to beat. I can't wait to watch them this season.
In Northwest, they made the national poll this week. Only the 10th time they've ever been nationally ranked. The previous 9 times were all in the 2016 season. So off to a great start. We talked about last year, this team was really good. They never found their way into the national poll. Some other interesting news is this week the MIAA also announced that the tournament will no longer be at the Top Seams hosted arena where last year Northwest got that home playoff game against UCM. Now that MIAA tournament will take place in Kansas City at the Hy-Vee Arena, so it'll be a neutral court for everybody as they go play the volleyball MIAA conference tournament.
And I think that's going to play a big role, maybe for Northwest. Honestly, if you want to tailor it more towards them having the advantage, when you go and play these neutral site games this early, and you don't really see your MIAA teams in these invitationals, so you're getting that neutral site experience. And I think that's going to help them in the long run, playing 2 tournaments in a row at neutral sites. So you're getting this whole vibe of what it takes to go into where it's not dominated by a Bearcat home crowd, and you know how to win. You know how to go out and attack in the right way to produce wins and to really come together as a team. And I think that's why Northwest maybe does these 2 invitationals right after each other, because they know, well, further down the road, this might help us as far as our record. Maybe not in the conference-wise, but further down the road, this could help us, get some experience in a neutral site in case we have to do it later on in the season, especially now that this MIAA tournament is going to be a neutral site thing.
Welcome back to the Weekend Sports Kickoff here on X106 and streaming live on KNWT Channel 8's Facebook page. Jacob Blair, Andrew Botwinick, Nolan Brooks, and Sam Steinmeier with you. It's time for a new segment here on the Weekend Sports Kickoff. We're calling it No Need for Film. It's where we've got some statements, and the question is whether or not we need to maybe pump the brakes, go watch some more film, do some more research, or if after we've seen what we've seen, if those statements are something we should take for what they're worth. We're going to start what we talked about in the NFL segment. We're going to hold off on the Ravens and Dolphins game, so that's where this new segment's going to start. For me, the Baltimore Ravens are now Super Bowl contenders.
I don't know how you want us to word it, but I'm going to say that you need to go to the film room, watch what they did last year. 'Cause they played a Dolphins team who's imploded on themselves. They've put everybody on the market. I'm sure Brian Flores would offer himself in a trade if he could. The Dolphins team is a team that could probably compete with Clemson for a college national championship, but to say that the Ravens are as good as they are after that win is not.
And that's why this question is posed. It's kind of a question: are the Ravens really that good, or are the Dolphins really that bad? And every year there's a team in the NFL where like, well, that team would lose to Clemson, or whoever the best team in college football is. I think if you're going to make an argument, at least what we saw in Week 1 from the Dolphins this year is your best argument for it. Normally there is no argument. It's still the NFL players, and it's just kind of the bottom of that pool of players where you on a Clemson team you've got 8 or 10 guys that are going to make the NFL. But I think this year you've got an argument. For me, though, yeah, it's still NFL players, and what the Ravens did is compared to what the Browns and the Steelers and the Bengals did, that team is going to run away with that division. And that's my take after Week 1, and where you sit, that to me makes them at this point Super Bowl contenders. They're behind the Patriots and the Chiefs, but now you've got 15 more games to improve from there, work more on Lamar Jackson and your passing offense, because you know the rushing offense is going to be there. So the Ravens, although it was a really bad team, for me, that game should have been a game with how bad the Dolphins were at 38-10 instead of not 59-10. And that's what impressed me, is just how bad it was in terms of the gap between those two teams.
And the funny thing, too, is that the Dolphins scored 10 points. They're not even the worst team in the NFL in terms of offensive points scored. They're sitting tied for third last. The Bears had only 3, the Steelers had 3, and then the Packers had 10. I think those offenses combined, each one of those offenses has a much more potential to get more points across in a game like that than the Dolphins. And I think that's where you're starting to get the question of, are the Dolphins really that bad? I think they are. I think it's more the Dolphins playing bad than the Ravens playing well.
I don't think they're Super Bowl contenders. That seems a bit far-fetched for me. Do I think that they maybe prove themselves a little bit? I mean, when you score 59 in an NFL game, I mean, that's impressive. That should open some eyes that, okay, well, maybe they got a little bit more than we thought. So, I mean, yes, it opened some eyes, but I don't think I wouldn't put them in a running for a Super Bowl in any sense, but I definitely think it put them in a running that maybe Baltimore wasn't in before.
Yeah, I originally didn't pick Baltimore to even go to the playoffs.
I didn't either.
So I don't think Baltimore is necessarily Super Bowl contenders, but they've obviously
that
jumped
third or fourth best team after Week 1.
I think they have a better shot at winning the AFC North now that we saw what the Steelers did and we saw what the Browns did. I think they're now the front runners for that division, and I think they're probably, I mean, people are probably looking at that saying this team is a Super Bowl contender, but I mean, I don't believe that. Lamar Jackson, I got to see him do that against an actual NFL defense other than the Dolphins. I don't think Lamar Jackson's a running back. I don't think anyone's going to say that anymore, but this team is right now not a Super Bowl contender, but definitely in the playoff picture.
So the next one, we're going to stick with the Dolphins. We're going to talk about their Week 2 matchup. And there's been some turmoil now in that Dolphin locker room after that game against the Ravens. Now you have to go play the Patriots. Yeah, you get to be at home, but so here's the statement. Is that game, the Patriots score 70 points?
No. It's still...
Do we get a college football scoreline in the Patriot-Dolphin game?
Absolutely not. These are still NFL players. The Dolphins still have, Xavier Howard, Minka Fitzpatrick. They still have NFL caliber players.
I mean, the Ravens scored 59 points.
The Ravens did score 59 points, but the Patriots, I don't think it's going to happen because it's still an NFL defense. Granted, it could be the worst defense we've ever seen, but it's still an NFL defense. And the Patriots, the Patriots they play conservative. They don't throw the ball deep very much, like Lamar Jackson did with Hollywood Brown. I don't think that's going to happen very much. They like to dink and dunk down the field. They might get to 50. They probably could get to 50, but I don't know about 70.
There's a certain player right now we're waiting to see if he'll play this week, being Antonio Brown. If he's on the field, the Patriots are going to go deep.
Yeah, and obviously they still could go deep. If he's not, they have Josh Gordon, Philip Dorsett. Those are two good receivers, but I just don't see an NFL defense giving up 70 points.
I agree with that. 70 just sounds...
But it's only 11 more than what the Ravens did.
I know that, but...
It sounds crazy, but then you're like, well, the Ravens put up 59.
What kind of supports the whole 70 points by the Patriots is that after week 1, before even Antonio Brown was considered for week 2, the Patriots were predicted to win 40-0 without Antonio Brown. So, I mean, do I think Antonio Brown adds 30 extra points worth of offense? No.
But to me, the question is the Patriots' offense 11 points better than the Ravens' offense?
I mean, if you look at it, it would make sense to pick that. I don't think they're gonna score 70.
To me,
that just sounds way too big.
With that statement is the NFL. You don't see those score lines because the teams slow down. You see those score lines all the time in college football. I think it for sure is 50-something, but I kind of agree. I don't think we get to 70. I think the Patriots could. I think if the Patriots wanted to, this could be a 90-point game. It's that lopsided. But they're going to slow down.
8-man football out there?
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen those. Maybe that was too far, but maybe a game like 77-3. Not a 70 to, but it's that bad. I mean, when you're in the NFL, spreads are low. The Patriots are 18.5-point favorites in an NFL football game.
I'll start you out in 1920, Rochester versus Fort Porter. 66 points Rochester scored. You go to 1950, L.A., 70 points against Baltimore. And in 1966, the last time it's ever happened, 72 points Washington scored against New York. And the Patriots will not join that list as teams to score upwards of almost 70 points. I will say, though, however, that after practice on Friday, Brian Flores is going to go home. He's going to have himself some nice relaxing, whatever he does, Brian Flores. He's going to wake up on Saturday. He's going to look through his phone. He's going to turn on his TV. He's going to do some scouting because the team has 2 first-round draft picks this year. They have 2 second-round draft picks this year. They have 2 third-round draft picks this year, a 4th-round draft pick this year, 2 5th-round, 2 6th-round, 2 7th-round draft picks just in this year. Brian Flores has got some scouting to do because he knows they're not going to win against the Patriots. That's why the Patriots win, but I don't think they score 70.
Well, let's drop it 10 points, 60. Do you think they could score one more than the Ravens and get to 60?
Yeah, I think that's a big possibility. They could get to 70 if they wanted to. Yeah, that's more plausible than 70.
I think Sam just said it in this game of them getting to 60 or getting to 70, seeing some outrageous numbers is if they want to. This is going to be a game where it might be 42-0 in the middle of the third quarter, or maybe even in the middle of the second quarter, and Tom Brady doesn't play the rest of the game.
The real question is does Jarrett Stidham score this team 60 points? I think that's possible in this offense. I think, 60 points is definitely in the question still. 70 points now, possibly, but 60 points is not out of question.
Welcome back to the Weekend Sports Kickoff. Jacob Blair, Andrew Botwick, Nolan Brooks, and Sam Steinmeier with you. We're live on X106 and streaming live on KNWT Channel 8's Facebook page. And it is time for that segment. It is Off My Rocker. We're going to start with Sam this week. He's brought in some interesting takes here for this segment, and I'm interested to see what Sam's got for us this week.
So, we all saw the Cowboys' offense last week. It was very good under the play calling of Kellen Moore. So that's why after this year, no matter what happens, no matter how much success the Cowboys have, Kellen Moore will be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys at the end of the season. Jason Garrett will no longer be in charge.
I want to hear, before I say anything, what the other resident Cowboy fan here has to say.
Sam's not off his rocker. Man, Sam, I really like that. I do. I mean, Kellen Moore showed you he's got an ability to change up the style of that offense. Last year, Zeke was over 70% of the workload. This year, you got your O-line back. You can be a pass-heavy offense if you want to. If that doesn't work out, you can rely on the run because you know it's there. You know that having a workload like that is possible and it works for you in a way. But he showed you the pass-heavy offense can also work for the Cowboys with the new weapons they have at wide receiver and Michael Gallup, Amari Cooper, and bringing back old reliable and Jason Witten. As much as that didn't look like it did anything, it does. It's a locker room thing. So I think Kellen Moore did a fantastic job. Sam, I don't think you're off your rocker for this one. Kellen Moore keeps producing an offensive production like that every week. I don't see Jerry Jones. I mean, seeing Jerry Jones not take that into consideration is not a wild thing to think about. Right now, I mean, it doesn't look like Jason Garrett's going anywhere, which is weird because they kind of give him the credit for it, even though Kellen Moore made the play calls. But that's not out of left field at all. I think that's a very real world thing.
After the end of the Cowboys game last week, I texted Austin that the Cowboy MVP was Kellen Moore and that the game ball should go to Mike Shula, who is the New York Giants offensive coordinator. Again, I've mentioned because they didn't give the ball to Saquon Barkley, but the bigger point of that is that that game, to me, was won because of what Kellen Moore was doing with that offense. So I think the hard part about what Sam has said is you look at the fact that Kellen Moore's got this offense rolling, at least here in week one. Well, if they're winning games, Jason Garrett's not going anywhere.
Overall, I don't see that last leg allowing them to do so.
So in the segment of Nolan's noises, which has kind of been what this is, it is Nolan's turn. And he set the bar this year, but let's see where Nolan's at here in this week's edition of Off My Rocker.
Okay. Don't hit me.
Okay.
Don't hit me from across the table. Okay?
Oh, no.
All of us are leaning
Prep
back.
yourself. Yeah. Prep yourself. Lamar Jackson. Yes, Lamar Jackson from the Baltimore Ravens, right? You know who that is. Okay? Will win the MVP this year over Patrick Mahomes due to the Madden curse. Not stats, not team record, none of that. The Madden curse will hit Mr. Mahomes, and he will not play as good as you think. And Lamar Jackson will win the MVP. Dual threat quarterback with his rushing and his passing, and he'll lead the Ravens, and he will win the MVP.
This is the most multi-layered statement we've had, because not only are you saying, basically in both your statements, you're saying Patrick Mahomes is going to play bad, and then Lamar Jackson is going to play
bad.
Lamar Jackson's going to play well enough to not only beat out Patrick Mahomes, but beat out everyone else and win the MVP.
Yeah.
First off, did you see Patrick Mahomes on Sunday?
Yeah, I also saw Lamar Jackson.
Okay.
He was playing the Dolphins. That was not an NFL defense.
He played an 8-man team, Nolan.
You all three of you admitted
Clemson
that
could
he
probably
looked
put
good
59
until
points on
59
him.
points,
I'm
though.
going towards more of the Madden curse statement. Is Patrick Mahomes had one leg for over half of that game and still had 300-plus yards and 3 touchdowns against a very comparable defense. The Dolphins are not. Lamar Jackson had a great game. He's not going to do that every week.